Let's talk about some bad dialogue. Attack of the Clones has some of the worst dialogue in movie history. Now, I'm a George Lucas fanatic and I love the man. I don't want to throw shade. George Lucas is a genius, but not necessarily a genius when it comes to dialogue. We're going to take his worst written scene and break it down to see how we could do it better and how a rewrite may have saved this turkey. We'll also see how using these 10 tips we might rewrite our own dialogue to avoid coming up with something this bad. I'm going to read the dialogue myself just so I can avoid copyright issues, and I can't really do much worse of a job in the performance. This is the script found online, so it actually has even more bad dialogue than the original scene. They had the sense to cut some of it out. We're going to put it back in just for fun. Just to avoid any copyright issues, I'm going to play both parts. I can't possibly do a worse job than the two actors in this scene. No fault to them. It's hard to make bad dialogue sound good. But here we go. May I tell you something?
I don't know.
Then how can I tell you?
Maybe you should use your Jedi intuition.
It doesn't work around you. My mind is always a muddle. I can only think of you.
Anakin, don't.
From the moment I met you, all those years ago, a day hasn't gone by when I haven't thought of you. And now that I'm close to you again, I'm in agony. The closer I get to you, the worse it gets. The thought of not being with you makes my stomach turn over. My mouth goes dry. I feel dizzy. I can't breathe. I'm haunted by the kiss you should never have given me. My heart is beating, hoping that kiss will not become a scar. You are in my very soul, tormenting me. What can I do? I will do anything you ask. If you are suffering as much as I am, tell me.
I can't. We can't. It's just not possible.
Anything's possible. Padme, please listen.
You listen. We live in a real world. Come back to it. You're studying to become a Jedi Knight. I'm a senator. If you follow your thoughts through to conclusion, they will take us to a place we cannot go, regardless of the way we feel about each other.
Then you do feel something.
I will not let you give up your responsibilities, your future, for me.
But you're asking me to be rational. That is something I know I cannot do. I wish I could wish my feelings away, but I can't. I'm not going to give in to this. I'm not going to throw my life away. I have more important things to do than fall in love. It wouldn't have to be that way. We could keep it a secret.
Then we'd be living a lie. One we couldn't keep even if we wanted to. Couldn't do that, could you, Anakin? Could you live like that?
No, you're right. It would destroy us. Youch. That is painful to listen to. Now, what's sad about this is actually a great scene in a deep and powerful Shakespearean tragedy. There's a lot going on here, a lot of depth, a lot of interesting things to play with. He's essentially a priest he cannot love, and he's in love with her, and she loves him too, but can't admit it. And they're thrust together alone in a paradise, and they want each other. There's a lot there. There's a lot to play with, and this should be a great scene, but here's why it's not. It doesn't follow any of these 10 ideas on writing. Number 1, it's not the sound, it's what is said. Now, the sound in this one's pretty terrible. They don't sound like human beings. But worse than that is how generic the dialogue is. When he talks about her and how much he loves her, and he basically says she makes him want to throw up in his mouth. That doesn't work with women. I've tried it. It's nothing specific about her. It's nothing that tells us that he even knows her. He's sort of like a 14-year-old boy that likes the idea of a woman, not really liking any particular one. They just want a woman. Let's contrast this to the end scene of when Harry met Sally. In this scene, Harry tells Sally he loves her by telling her,
I love that you get cold when it's 71 degrees out. I love that it takes you an hour and a half to order a sandwich. I love that you get a little crinkle above your nose when you're looking at me like I'm nuts.
He knows her. That's something that he could only say to Sally, only in this movie. But the gobbledygook that Anakin babbles to Padme here is like a bad Shakespearean sonnet. It could be said to any girl, anywhere, and it wouldn't work, by the way. The dialogue is not specific to the character. Dialogue, characters pursue an objective, and they try different tactics to get what they want. A good scene is like a chess match where characters have scene objectives that are in conflict, and they take steps to get what they want until one of them wins the scene. Now, if we look at the scene objective, we know the scene objective. Anakin wants Padme. Padme wants Anakin to stop, walk away, but she does have feelings for him. In a good scene, characters will try different tactics to get what they want. The tactics are expressed in verbs. So she could shame him, she could insult him, she could lie to him, she could change the subject, she could do a lot of different things, but really his only tactic is begging, which doesn't work with women, and her tactic is pretty simple: just shut him down. This is where we can see how we could transform it in a rewrite by understanding this principle. If we looked at our scene and said, oh, she's really not trying a lot, she's not really doing a lot, what tactics could she take? She could shame him. That kiss I gave you, you were just a little boy, it meant nothing. Send him running, screaming from the room. This is another thing that drives me crazy about this scene. In the end, I'm not convinced that anybody has won the scene. She's not convincing. The final line of dialogue, it's not convincing, and he just gives in. She should make him run screaming from the room. She should give him a checkmate moment, like this one from The Social Network.
Okay, you are probably going to be a very successful computer person. But you're going to go through life thinking that girls don't like you because you're a nerd. And I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that that won't be true. It'll be because you're an asshole.
Right? When he hears that line of dialogue, Mark Zuckerberg knows this relationship is over and there's no going back. Is Anakin really convinced here? I don't think so. Good dialogue should dramatize exposition. Characters shouldn't say something they wouldn't say in real life. There's no way she would ever say this. He knows he's a Jedi. She knows she's a senator. He knows he can't love. They wouldn't say it. And so you've got to find other ways to get that information across, or it's really clunky expository writing. Good dialogue uses subtext. There is no subtext here. He comes right out and says what he wants. It also seems to come out of nowhere. Right? Like, what are they doing? Why are they here? Why is she dressed like that? Why did somebody take two people who are not supposed to be having sex and put them in the world's most romantic planet and have them sit within 3 inches of each other and have her wear that dress?
You're a Jedi, and I'm a queen and a handmaiden and a senator.
But there's no subtext to be had. Anakin comes right out and says what he wants. One of the problems here is there's not much to talk about. One of the tricks with subtext is if you want to use subtext, you've got to set the scene. You've got to give yourself something to talk about. There's not really much to talk about here other than the plot. There's not much going on, but there could be a lot going on. Let's say we put something in the scene that would give them something to do. What if they were in the middle of working on some plot, or what if they were hiding out? Or what if she was doing some sort of diplomatic work, showing us who she is and what she's doing, and he interrupts it. And maybe he doesn't come out and say it right away. Maybe he starts by talking about something interesting or unique. Maybe he could tell a story about a Jedi who had some deceptive love and how it worked out or didn't. The specificity of that would make the dialogue interesting and feel real. But this doesn't feel real at all. This feels like a bad high school play. Good dialogue is imperfect. These people sound like robots. They should be using contractions. They should be making mistakes. This line might be the single worst, most mechanical line I've ever read.
If you follow your thoughts through to conclusion, they will take us to a place we cannot go, regardless of the way we feel about each other.
there's one interesting bit of writing here, and this is where the turning point of the scene takes place. A turning point in a scene is the moment in which the scene has turned and changed the story. In the book Into the Woods, John Yorke talks about how each scene is a 3-act structure. In each scene, a character enters a scene with a thesis. They meet an antithesis that creates a conflict. And because of the clashing of the thesis and antithesis, a synthesis is created, meaning a change. Anakin enters the room wanting to tell Padme he's in love with her. Padme shows conflict, but in the moment she makes a mistake and the scene turns and the scene changes the story, opening up the story for a future in which Anakin will win her over, which will lead to his downfall. And this is the moment.
It'll take us to a place we cannot go, regardless of the way we feel about each other.
She makes a mistake. She says the wrong thing. And this is what is so powerful about dialogue. Dialogue is not us at our best, speech written looking at a teleprompter. Dialogue is our mouths talking faster than our brains can work, and we say things that are stupid. We make mistakes. We say the wrong thing, and the wrong thing will move the world and change the story and change the world. This opens up the possibility that he can win her over, and he does later. This is the line of dialogue that changes the story and leads to the downfall of Darth Vader. And this could have been a great scene, but it looks like he basically filmed the first draft. That's the trick. A lot of us are going to write bad scenes like this. In fact, you should be writing scenes this bad. You should be writing so fast to get your first draft out there. Get used to writing. Make it a habit. Make it something you can do automatically without thinking about it and fearing it. And write really bad scenes like that. Write scenes that are worse than this, but don't film them, right? Don't send them to anybody. Before you do that, go through, look at the tips on the list, and change the scene and rewrite it so it's great. Any scene can be made great on a rewrite, even if it's trash the first time around. In the next video, we'll talk about how you construct a scene using Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Bastards.